And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another weekly review with The Robot, brought to you by the Movie Pope. And here he is, bolts and nuts akimbo, The Robot.
Last season we did double-header reviews for the holidays, mainly for Halloween, Thanksgiving, and Christmas. The guys did their usual shtick, talk, and then I followed up with my succinct and brilliant takes on movies that follow the movies they review. So, we've compiled the 3 holiday reviews into one. It's kinda nice to go back and just see how far we've come. Also, we're all a tad bit tired and need some much-needed R&R, so here's my review of The Color Out of Space to celebrate Halloween. Then my descents on Anaconda for Thanksgiving, and then we wrap things up with the Christmas review of Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol. Enjoy! Thanks, guys! So, first off, Happy Halloween! I've always been a fan of the holiday, and I make it a point to plan months in advance for when I'm doing this one day out of the year, even more so than Christmas or Hanukkah. I'll be off after this to party with my homies. I'll be going as one of the Avengers, but I won't say who. And second off, it feels pretty good doing this on a Friday. Always wondered what it was like doing a review on Friday. Anyway, in keeping with the theme of alien invasions, I'm diving into 2019's The Color Out of Space, an adaptation of H.P. Lovecraft's story of the same name, starring Nicolas Cage and Jolie Richardson. Now, admittedly, I don't know too much about the works of Lovecraft, yet we're aware of his influence on pop culture. Biggest one for me is when they parodied it on that Depart episode of South Park. Forget the episode names, so my bad. Nevertheless, you don't have to crack open one of his books to know just how impactful he was and still is. So, for the second half of this Halloween doubleheader, I'll be diving into what I liked and didn't like about this movie, explore some of its quirks and foibles, and see how it compares to War of the Worlds. Spoilers, from what Lee was saying I may have the upper hand here, but we shall see. Once again, happy Halloween, crack open the Hershey's and take 5s, and let's see what's so weird and scary about alien meteorites taking over the world. Or at least, a small hamlet. Someone should look into that. Just as in War of the Worlds, The Color Out of Space also deals with family drama in the midst of an alien arrival. Whereas in War of the Worlds everybody comes out okay and things sorta go back to normal, here it's not so much. Isn't it funny how the movies that follow a similar premise can just diverge? The Gardner family starts out as normal as can be. Sure, maybe country life doesn't suit everybody, but they're making the most out of it. But once the meteorite lands, that's when things start getting weird. Whatever came from space begins messing with their minds and the tech. The youngest, Jack, is the first to experience it, and soon it starts spreading, from the youngest up to mom and dad, slowly tearing them apart. The Gardners are already eccentric as it is. Lavinia, their daughter, is off practicing witchcraft, so that automatically qualifies her as baddie. Sorry to all witches and warlocks watching, but you know it's true. Ezra, the hippie, is out there anyway, so for him this is just a normal Tuesday. Nathan is overly concerned with his alpacas and is smelling things, and Teresa is missing a few fingers. Don't think she's too keen on country life based on her demeanor. And Benny loves the ganja, so what can you do? Ward, the hydrologist, is caught in the middle of all this madness. He's simply there to check on the water quality, and even when things start going haywire, he attributes it to water contamination. By the time the movie ends, what we've experienced along with the family seems pretty surreal, like it's all a dream. Did we really experience a horrific experimentation by extraterrestrials, or were they just messing with us all along? Nothing intrigues higher intelligent beings more than putting us hominids through the ringer and seeing what happens when things go awry. Usually, when it comes to alien invasions, you think of scary aliens, giant and advanced machines capable of leveling cities, and weaponry that makes hypersonic missiles look like giant crossbows. It becomes a trope. But something like a meteorite, appearing lifeless and unassuming, no one would think twice about it ever being a threat, let alone something that could carry something threatening. In War of the Worlds, the meteorite shower was a smokescreen to knock out all communications to prepare for the Martian invasion, whereas here the meteorite is the carrier of the alien invader. Can I say that? Here, it's not so overt, and rocks falling out of space are pretty innocuous. Happens all the time. However, the alien creature isn't overt, but rather, it messes with everyone's head. Its form is indeterminate, either appearing as a strange purple hue that flashes around the property, some weird insect that pops out of a well, hallucinations, or a lightning-shooting mist. What we do know is that its presence is affecting the Gardner family. At first, when it makes landfall, it's trying to get the lay of the land, figure out what the inhabitants are like. Recon, to use military lingo. From there it begins experimenting, such as fusing Teresa and Jack into something worse than Brundlefleet. But soon it toys with them, first cutting off communications and then driving them into the berserker state I mentioned in the last segment. I think it's safe to say this isn't a friendly first contact like we see in Star Trek, or even an encounter with a slightly familiar-looking alien like in The Day the Earth Stood Still. This is an entity of which we have no comprehension and can barely begin to describe or understand what it can do. War of the Worlds has been adapted in numerous films throughout the years, and whatever characters and storylines they want to insert they are, for the most part, faithful to H.G. Wells' original story. However, the 2025 version puts the alien invasion on the backseat and even changes their motivations to suit today's concerns, which in turn leads to a bloated and subpar product that's more preachy than entertaining. The aliens aren't so much the villains as the United States government. Who would have thought? This movie, though, stays true to its roots while updating the narrative for 21st century audiences. Lovecraft is tapping into a mythos around beings that are as old as the cosmos itself, creatures that pre-exist all life in the universe, whose presence have sparked madness, created cults, and crafted lore on numerous worlds. The amorphous alien creature here is an ancient being that harnesses reality itself and bends it to its will, like a child playing with modeling clay. If humans happen to be in it, well, you're screwed. Watching it reminds me of Poltergeist and The Shining, where the dad in both films begin to descend into madness to the point where they cease to be the men they were. After all, when the head of the family falls, the breakup of the family unit isn't far behind. And, true to Lovecraft, it doesn't end the way we would like, where the final girl walks away, blooded but breathing. Lavinia meets her and just like the rest of her kin. While both stories dealt with a similar subject, I feel that one didn't really live up to the legacy of the original story, while the other definitely made sure to stay within the lines. First of all, Tommy Chong, the Tommy Chong. In an adaptation of an H.P. Lovecraft story. Oh yeah, baby, you got my attention. And he's on point, playing the same stoner as he did back in the 70s, that even in a cosmic horror film he doesn't feel too out of place. Second, as Ezra, the hippie squatter, his mind is stuck in the 60s, very much believing the aliens below are communicating. He's very receptive and strangely doesn't fight or resist, but becoming one with the universe, as the old-timers used to say. He understands what the alien is doing, but for me, I'm leaning towards something more sinister. After all, Lovecraftian horror is all about beings with less than noble intentions. Anyway, pretty soon he sheds his mortal coil and becomes one with them. At least, that's how it appears. He becomes a ghost in the machine, quite literally, and considering how everyone else comes to a sticky end, I'd say he got the better end of the deal. I just had to give my man a huge shout out. Love you, Tommy. If I had to pick one element I disliked, it was the fact that Ward sees where the color comes from. But I very much prefer my monsters to have a bit of a mystery around them. Sure, it shows us that there are more of where these things came from, but for me, just leaving it for us to speculate and figure out how it relates to the other monsters of Lovecraft's universe would be better. Let us do some of the imagining, have the audience participate. Don't spell everything out entirely, but leave a little for us to chew on. That'd be my only gripe. The color out of space just works. It's horror on so many levels. It gives us body horror, psychological thriller, alien invasions, and a little witchcraft. A movie that tries to incorporate so many different subgenres of horror would normally fall flat on its face and become an unmitigated disaster, sacrificing story for something grandiose. But here, it does it so effortlessly and each subgenre breeds the other. Body horror leads to psychological breakdown and paranoia, because in the effort to make sense of something so twisted it leads to a crisis of faith. Whatever was real and true can no longer be certain. And the story is pretty simple to understand. The story is set in a bucolic environment, but this Eden quickly gets spoiled. In the midst of increasing horror, the gardeners try their best to keep a brave face, but that soon breaks down. And it's devilishly nice to see them descend to a level that humans dare not speak of. To drive people just a little bit crazy, all you gotta do is mess with their familiar setting, shake things up, and then sit back and watch the blowback. It is kinda weird to see Nathan Gardner go nuts when he sees his precious alpacas turned into something out of Greek mythology. This unnamed alien, without discernible form or true understanding of what it is, comes out as the perfect monster and villain. And that's what makes the color all the more menacing. The Martians in War of the Worlds, for all their bravado and shock and our tactics, aren't as intimidating. We know what they look like and what they can do, and therefore we know how to take them down. We know what their motivations are, however ridiculous they may be, and we can counter them. But in the color out of space, it's less than clear-cut. There is no way to fight this thing or even try to reason with it. We best get out of its way and hope we emerge unscathed. Wow, seriously, way to be a total jerk, man. And here I thought we were all friends here. Anyway, that aside, before we go off and enjoy a nice Thanksgiving with family and friends, I wanted to dip into the OG that inspired this version here. Anaconda from 1997 was, admittedly, a pretty corny movie. It's definitely daring us not to laugh while trying to be super serious, but everybody involved in the film is behaving in such a way that makes one question, in what universe would this be considered common sense? And don't get me started on the snake, too. Now, I should be sympathetic that my forefathers were processing at a level that is considered primitive today, but still, when they were doing the final cut, did nobody stop and say, surely, we can't put this out there? Nobody would get through this without busting out laughing. Yet, in spite of all this, it has since become a cult classic and an icon of a decade that brought us boy bands, Tamagotchis, Trapper Keepers, and Fruit by the Foot. So for those of you who were into it at that time, there's a huge likelihood this will definitely scratch that nostalgia itch. So, if you can spare 10 minutes, let's take a walk down memory lane, and then we can break the beat with our family and friends. Yes, even robots are allowed to celebrate this National Day of Gratitude. Any 90s kid will remember J-Lo was the pop singer who appeared all over MTV in those sultry music videos, singing about whatever. Her acting chops were so-so, the biggest one being her portrayal of Selena in the biopic of the same name. She was definitely getting her toes wet in dramatic roles, and given the topic, it was decent, but it was more of a vehicle for her to show off her mad music skills. In Anaconda, that safety net's gone. She's doing the same dramatic bit, but it falls flat on its face. Instead of leaning on her musicality to bail her out, she's tapping into the smart but sexy female lead. She's supposed to be the big kahuna in charge of this film project, but nobody takes her seriously, except for Danny, who's only doing this out of friendship. And if nobody takes her seriously in the movie, then why should we, the audience, do likewise? I mean, half of the crew sides with Ceronian hunting down this giant snake. As things get progressively worse, she loses control of the situation and can't seem to find a way to regain control. Personally, I think the studio was just looking for an excuse to film J-Lo in a hot, Sweaty jungle, and this was the perfect opportunity. Just saying, that's all. Jon Voight plays Paul Cerrone, a poacher who's gone all Captain Ahab in his hunt to capture the Anaconda, and he will use anybody and do anything to accomplish his goal. And the crew don't take to kindly to his brusque manners, let alone his hijacking of the boat. But there's more to this guy than simply being overly zealous in trying to capture a snake for profit. He's as indestructible as he is resourceful. Seriously, this guy's like Michael Myers. No matter what happens to him, he just keeps coming back. He gets shot, stabbed, tranquilized, tossed into the river, and regurgitated by the Anaconda, but he just can't seem to die. I'm starting to think maybe he's not really a man, as he is the spirit of the jungle made flesh, and he represents the madness that comes from getting lost in the Amazon. He's got the same mad look like Colonel Kurtz from Apocalypse Now, but with an accent. It seems out of all the characters in this movie, Danny Rich, the project's cameraman, is the most sane. Everyone else on the boat is either too self-absorbed or emotionally distraught to think straight, and it ends up costing them dearly. Danny, though, keeps his head on a swivel, but his mind clear. He sticks with Terry Flores and helps her in reclaiming the boat, and goes through hell to help her accomplish her goal. First to survive and then to film their movie on a lost tribe in the Amazon. Danny's got no pretensions, no hyperbolic traits, and no foibles that you make you second guess him. He's just a straight up dude who just wants to do his job and then get back to Ella as soon as possible. But even when thrust into these ludicrous situations that, honestly, should kill an ordinary human being, he manages to persevere. While he may seem like an ancillary character, he's us on the boat, doing what any normal person would do if thrust into the same scenario. Now, I'm not a herpetologist or even one of those scientific robots you see at Harvard or Yale, so my knowledge of snakes and reptiles is gonna be limited. But I can say this movie is portraying an anaconda that has the strength of Jaws and can do all sorts of incredible things that, for a normal anaconda, would seem nearly impossible. Last time I checked, they can't smash through floorboards like they were cardboard. The Anaconda Cerrone is hunting as the mob of the Amazon, and, just like the infamous whale, is just minding its own business when interlopers arrive to heckle it. But hey, a free meal's a free meal, right? And it does take a lot of abuse. From gunshots to crossbow bolts to axes and even fire, but it just keeps going. Danny finally dispatches it after 60-something minutes, and that's the last we see of it. Not sure if steak is on the menu for Thanksgiving dinner, but if it is at your house, just say no. I kinda feel sorry for the crew, I really do. All they wanted was to make a movie about a tribe, and then Cerrone shows up and hijacks everything. And while everyone flips out over this change of plans, the only person who's willing to adapt is Gary. Instead of filming a tribe, why not film a movie about a guy trying to capture an anaconda? Well, what we'll see in Anaconda when it drops Christmas Day sort of follows Gary's idea. Too bad he didn't get to see it happen, as he got the red shirt treatment shortly afterwards. But the original from 1997 was trying its hardest to be the next Jaws that it just became comical. Jon Voight was a bit over the top as the villain. J-Lo was basically walking around in a wet t-shirt. Eric Stoltz was having a nice siesta while the boat was being torn apart every which way. And the snake was just picking off people at will, and there wasn't a thing anyone could do about it. Oh, and the snake's power levels fluctuated. From being strong enough to smash a boat, but being vulnerable to sharp objects. It's not quite what I'd expect, but hey, at least Paul Rudd and Jack Black are going to make this movie the way it should have been made. Let's hope it doesn't overdo it. Wow, what a review. And while the guys wrapped up the last movie in the Mission Impossible franchise with The Final Reckoning, I'm only on movie number 4 with Ghost Protocol from 2011. It's one of those movies I never got around to seeing back then, and I figured it wasn't a big of a deal. So when they proposed this as an option for our Christmas special, I jumped at the opportunity. Let's take a walk down memory lane and see where Ethan Hunt and friends were in 2011 when they were trying to prevent a nuclear holocaust. I assure you, you're not hearing things. That is what they were doing in the fourth movie of this franchise, all those years ago. So, Merry Christmas, one and all, and let's continue with our special and day two of the Christmas film series by diving into Ghost Protocol. So, the big baddie of Ghost Protocol is a former nuclear strategist named Kurt Hendricks, who goes by the codename Cobalt. His entire mission is to preempt a war between the United States and Russia, which will, ideally, lead to ultimate global annihilation, so something will happen. He's not quite clear on the details, really, other than seeing beauty in utter destruction. It would seem the creators of the entity in Dead Reckoning must have based the programming on Cobalt, because they think so much alike. In a weird sort of way, you could say the entity is like an incarnation of Cobalt, an avatar of the nuclear madness that lived on even after our friend made friends with the concrete in a Mumbai garage. I'm not entirely sure if Cobalt sees an opportunity to make himself lord of the world after the dust settles, or, to quote Alfred Pennyworth, just wants to watch the world burn, but he's not a very reasonable person. He's gung-ho and committed in his task to seeing what happened. He doesn't even care about his own self-preservation. For that matter, makes you wonder why was it so hard for Ethan, or anyone on his team, to take him down? Ethan is both the leader and the pack animal of the team. He's out doing all these ludicrous bits because he's got to. He's the team leader, and all responsibility falls on him. When you look at it that way, it's a pretty circular way of thinking. Especially when he volunteers to Spider-Man his way up to the server room. He really didn't push back hard, but just accepted it, in a sort of messianic way, which piqued my interest because it's a pattern of behavior he exhibits time and time again. My huge pet peeve about Ethan Hunt is that he acts like he's the only competent one in the impossible mission force, and he takes it upon himself to go out and save the world all on his own while his teammates bicker. Now granted, whenever your teammates start acting like children, you do act like the grown-up in the room and get everyone back on track, not storm out and act like the Lone Ranger here. He takes on these tasks and suffers bodily injury over and over again, almost like self-flagellation. Like, if he shoulders this task, then he can feel good about himself. Ethan and his IMF buddies cannot catch a break. So many mishaps just happen to them, it's comical. As much as we want to mock James Bond for having things go smoothly as a martini, there's an appreciation for when things do go smoothly and the hitches are kept to a minimum. But here, they're dialed to 11. Whether it's Ethan having to climb with one working magnetic glove, a busted printer, a team member who wants to debate moral philosophy while the fate of the world is in the balance, or a massive dust storm, it's like anything that can go wrong in this movie does. Honestly, I wonder how it is they even accomplish their mission given the amount of hiccups that occur throughout any of these films. It's more down to luck than anything else. I would have thought there'd be one Mission Impossible movie where Ethan fails and the world gets blown to smithereens and he just mopes around, alternating between contemplation and self-abuse. But, to be fair, there are moments where they're cutting it close and it barely works. Barely. There are some hitches that end in a pretty satisfying way, the big one being when Morrow falls out the window after getting into a scuffle with Carter. I gotta say, Paula Patton did a good job in the movie, which is a shame we didn't get to see more of her in subsequent films, instead rotating through the likes of Haley Atwell and Rebecca Ferguson, both of whom did phenomenal jobs in Fallout, Dead Reckoning, and Final Reckoning, but Paula as Carter could have seen her role expand a lot more had they rolled the dice on her and gave her more screen time. Hell, had she been the one to get croaked instead of Ilsa, that would have been far more impactful on Ethan. But what's done is done. And knowing that her soon-to-be ex-husband Robin Thicke would totally humiliate her with that unfortunate display with Miley Cyrus, all I can say is, you go girl. I mean, seriously, when he totally wrecked things over, Robin Thicke actually recorded an album called Paula. Let that sink in for just a sec. He recorded an album named after his estranged wife with the hope that it would smooth things over with her and all would be forgiven. But when you do something as messed up as that, boy oh boy, you better have a good attorney ready. 'Cause nobody ever come back from that with their skin attached and their crown jewels intact, is all I'm saying. Mission Impossible: Ghost Protocol is a 2-hour-long action thriller. It's also the seedbed for what we'll see in the last 2 movies of the franchise, especially when it comes to nuclear annihilation. Some sort of figure with a god complex who is a bit genocidal in his thinking, and a protagonist who just exhibits reckless behavior to the point of intentional self-harm. Would we really have Dead Reckoning and the Final Reckoning in its present forms without Ghost Protocol leading the way? I think so, because either way they would have leaned into that whole nuclear annihilation motif to emphasize the gravity of the situation and the level of power the villain wields, as if trying to one-up Marvel by having their own Thanos-like character, more like Ultron, when you consider it closely. Anyway, Ghost Protocol certainly started the narrative arc that would carry on until 2025, but a part of me wishes she had just told individual stories in each movie without a continuity thread. This was at a time when Marvel Studios' gameplay was starting to catch on, so maybe the studios figured it'd be cool to imitate, but it can box you into a corner because you're limited by the story's direction in an attempt to be consistent. Thankfully, Mission Impossible had the decency to call it quits when they did and let Ethan Hunt ride off into the sunset to go do whatever it is he does. Marvel, you're taking notes. Get the hint. Merry Christmas, everybody, and have a safe and happy New Year. Thanks for watching, and if you don't mind, please leave us a like. It helps a lot. And while you're at it, subscribe so you never miss an episode drop. This is the Robot signing off.